Evening.
How are we doing, mate?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. I'm good. I'm good. How's the old teaching going, mate?
Very quiet.
Is it?
Yeah,
Have-
we've got so much going on there with the social media.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
uh, yeah, really,
Oh,
really
I'm in.
busy.
I'm in the homeschooling, mate.
Oh, the homeschooling. Oh, that teaching.
Yeah, that
Well,
teaching. Yeah,
fortunately, I leave that to Helen most of
yeah,
it. So I chip in and do my bit.
yeah.
But it's
The
yeah,
key, the key thing is to be really bad at it on the first day, and then you don't get asked again.
yeah, exactly. So
So, how
yeah,
things are you, mate? You all good?
yeah, good. Yeah, very
Yeah.
good. Thank you. How about you?
Yeah, very well, mate. Very well. Keeping busy, which is which is a good thing. So yeah, all good, my end, mate. I must say, after seeing you on this camera, mate, I'm very envious of you in this lockdown.
You're envious of me?
Yeah, like look at my terrible barnet at the minute, mate, and you don't have any of them worries.
Oh, my eyebrows I have to trim
Yeah.
these days. It's my
Oh,
eyebrows, my ears, and my nose.
yeah. I've got them as well. But no, thanks very much for joining me on here, mate. I think it's a great opportunity for us to kind of like get together and for some of my followers to really understand a little bit more about you and your coaching and kind of what you're all about. So really appreciate your time. I really don't want to try and keep you too long, so I'll try and
No,
keep it
you're
as
all
best
right.
I can to an hour. But we'll obviously see where the night takes us.
Yeah. No problem.
No, so obviously a lot of your guys have kind of jumped over on here, which is great. You can see them popping up at the bottom. But for those people that kind of, not quite aware of you yet or, not quite come across you, how would you kind of like sum up yourself or your coaching style and methods kind of in like a brief paragraph or two?
Basically, it's a natural learning approach. So the same thing, the same way you apply yourself to every other sport or every other skill in life, where you just let yourself adapt and movement just kind of happens and you just kind of recognize it and it organizes itself. So essentially, you learn the game or whatever it is you're doing through self-discovery.
Right, okay.
So the kind of body organizes itself. Um, you you explore all the opportunities, and your kind of natural movement patterns start to emerge. And it's just recognizing those patterns, and so recognizing your signature style, and it's kind of drawing that out. So what I look at doing is trying to draw that signature style swing out. And it's a mind-body motion philosophy we've got at Zen. So it's at any one time, it's all the systems are in play. That's the biomechanics, the physiology, the psychology, all those different scientific disciplines that we learn and use. It's a kind of interdisciplinary approach. So everything's being manipulated, if you like. So
Yeah.
it's not like a typical golf lesson where you're focusing on trying to make a certain swing or trying to make a certain move and there's a faults and fixes approach. I'm the complete opposite to that end of the spectrum, really. So, and it can be polarizing. I mean, it can appear to be challenging for people to kind of understand and accept. But that's the challenge that I really relish, trying to not convincing, but just showing people that there is another way. And I'm hoping that the YouTube channel does that. Really, that's my medium of really relaying that information across and helping people. So I'm all about just helping people to enjoy the game.
Yeah. No, I want to come back to the YouTube thing in a kind of little while, because in kind of like obviously how that's helped in kind of multiple ways. Let's just step back a few years and kind of whatnot first. And obviously this kind of approach is kind of fantastic. But kind of where did it all start in terms of you playing? Was you a player? Was you a did you have aspirations? Then kind of what was the process like into coaching? Did you go down the PJ route or something like that? Just take us through that kind of journey, really, where how you started and kind of how to become, you know, this version of you, really.
Yeah, it's a long journey, but I won't bore you to tears with that. But what I'll do is, in the long and short of it is, I was junior, played kind of county golf, but I played county cricket too. I love cricket, and so it was a choice between the two sports for me. And I probably should have gone cricket, to be fair. But I did my PGA, and then just went to Germany, coached in Germany, played a bit. So I was, obviously, as a young lad, you're wanting your aspirations of playing, but I'd also, from a very early age, I knew I wanted to combine coaching and playing. I knew I wasn't going to earn a living from playing. Yeah. I grew up at Retford Golf Club, and Worksop Golf Club. So lots of good golfers, lots of mates who had gone abroad teaching and playing. That looked really attractive to me. I thought I fancy doing that, because I mean, at Worksop where I was at, you've got guys like Lee Westwood and Mark Foster and Pete Denny Lucas and other lads who are my mate Darren Curtin. I mean, lads like that who you kind of benchmark yourself and you realise where you're at. And obviously things can change, but I'd already set my sights on teaching and playing, combining the two. Yeah. Enjoying playing, enjoying just playing competitive golf, and but focusing on the teaching. So I went to Germany, and I played on the Sunshine Tour a little bit. Yeah. And really, I used to spend the summers coaching in Germany, in the winters coming back home, and then going to South Africa. And I did that for a few years. That was awesome. Yeah. I mean, look, I played in Europe when I was in Germany. I played on the equivalent of the Euro Pro Tour. Yeah. And kind of my best finish ever was like 12th, I think. So it was like, and it was well under par, but it was kind of that was my limit, really. I was never going to pull up trees. So, yeah. But the coaching was where my heart lied. And so enjoyed the playing, but that gradually took more of a backseat as I took more time involved, applied more time to my coaching. So I went to uni when I came back to England, and I did a master's degree in sports biomechanics. Yeah. And that's what triggered it all, really. That's what opened my mind, opened my eyes, and made me question everything I'd ever done. Yeah, yeah. And
interesting. Obviously, you know, we spoke a fair bit, but you know, I actually didn't know that backstory on kind of playing. But did you feel that, obviously, you said from the start that, you know, you kind of knew your capabilities of a player, but coaching is where you kind of knew where the path was taking you. But did you really try and push your playing career to really get that credibility for kind of guys that you wanted to coach in the future, in terms of like other professionals, or did you not think that far ahead?
To be honest, I mean, I suppose, I mean, I was fortunate that when I was 19 and I first turned pro, my bosses were mavericks, really. Tony Bennett and Howard Bennett. I mean, Howard was the Irish national coach, so I was a young kind of first year trainee, and I'm going to work and I'm sitting on Padraig Harrington's golf bag and just watching him hit golf balls all day, because my boss was coaching him and he was coaching Darren Clark and he was coaching Paul McGinley. So yeah. These guys were a bit older than me, and obviously they were Irish youth players. But Howard was amazing. He used to involve me in the lessons and stuff. So it was kind of a real kind of special introduction, really, that started to pave the way and set a mindset. Yeah. And so I moved on from there because they left. So Tony went on to become the director of coaching for the PGAs of Europe, and he's now he's the president of the European Disabled Golf Association. He's well esteemed in the hierarchy of coaching, and an amazing guy to learn from. He always did things differently. So I think from straight away from the outset, I was seeing guys do it different, and they were monumental in shaping me as a person.
Fantastic.
And so I did that, and then I went to Lindrick, and my boss and good friend John King, he coached Lee Westwood onto tour, and Mark Foster and people like that. And John's the pro's pro. He's a top guy, very good friend, and I owe him a lot. And so again, I was surrounded by elite level coaching. Not saying it's all about elite level coaching, but what it's about is the mindset to get to that level.
100%.
And having that using that exploratory instinct. So that's what I did. I wanted to pursue my coaching. So the best thing to do, I thought, was to go to Germany, and I knew a few guys out there. So I went out to Germany and cut my teeth out there. Basically, I think for all young pros, I think it's a great thing to do is to go and learn and make mistakes and go and also find solutions and start to develop your own identity and your own philosophy, and then question it at every stage of your development. So I kind of hit the end of the track out there. Yeah. I felt like I'd got nowhere to go. I felt I was out in the back of beyond. It was a beautiful place in Passau in Bavaria.
Yeah. And
I had a fantastic lifestyle. I mean, the money was great. The town, the city was awesome. It was kind of living the dream, really, as a lad in your 20s. But when I got to like late 20s, started to think about long term and thinking about where am I going with my coaching, I was starting to think, do I see myself being out here for another 20 years? And the answer to that was no. So I came back, and that's when I did my master's degree, and I set up an academy and a golf shop over here, and then I became the head coach for Nottinghamshire. So I took on the county coaching role. Really successful. We won the 4 counties. We'd not won anything for a long time, and the under-18s won the 4 counties. And it was for me, that was a massive achievement, because it was developing juniors is a passion of mine, and developing junior players, and especially seeing them achieve dreams and aspirations and things like that. That's to be part of that journey is amazing. So I've taught a lot of good juniors and at all levels, and it's something I'm very passionate about. So I did the Masters, and then that led me on to meeting Nick at Zen Golf, and that's when things turned on its head again. So everything suddenly made sense. That paved the way for me to start to explore other avenues, and I took my research into other directions, and essentially that's where it's took me today.
Fantastic.
So that's essentially where I'm at today with Zen Golf Mechanics is where, I mean, I've been conducting scientific study at Sheffield Hallam now for 12 years. A lot of different research studies, particularly, so I specialised in 3D force plate analysis and kinematics and kinetics. So looking at essentially how the body moves, measuring it, and then exploring coaching applications to optimize that.
Yeah, and I think that's where like the key is to, you're not just a pretty face, obviously, with all these qualifications and kind of knowledge and kind of things like that, but the way you conduct your lessons and how simple and I know obviously you came into Zen after the founder, but you were kind of the perfect fit in terms of you can read through the YouTube comments, or people have said it in the lessons, you feel like you're hypnotized in some way, but that's just you making things so simple and exploring things, but in such a calm way and in a layman's terms way, but understanding that information, but not cluttering people's brain, and in fact decluttering it from some of the stuff that they might have been taught in the past.
Exactly. It's a kind of decomposition. So you are trying to declutter and trying to, I mean, it's very difficult to coach this way. And that's why I suppose not many people do it, because it's taken me a lifetime up to now. And I mean, obviously the coaching science is shifting towards this type of coaching, and it's been met with resistance in a lot of areas, a lot of quarters. people accept it, but don't necessarily adopt it, or adopt it in some format, in some way, shape, or form, but they don't fully 100% commit to it. And I understand that, but what it's doing is it's putting the learner, the pupil, at the heart of their own learning. So they are learning to learn. And so, as opposed to being taught and told what to do, you are learning how to learn and develop your own unique style, because we're all so unique. So we should all have different styles and different swings. So we might look similar, but we definitely don't swing the golf club similar. And if we start trying to swing it like somebody else, then we're really setting ourselves up for a fall, because at some point along the line, we're not going to recognise how to, for the want of a better word, correct what we're doing. To regulate it is the right word. So, I mean, you've come from a cricketing background, and it's the same way that you probably learnt to play cricket. It's kind of, you pick up a bat and you crack on, and you find you're half decent, and then you get better and better, and you step up levels, and if you step up levels, your technique improves, or your competency, proficiency improves as you go up the levels. So it's like Wayne Rooney getting thrown into the Premier League Everton team at 17 years old or something like that. It's like they your skill level very, very quickly improves, and
you have to adapt, otherwise you know where are you? So you kind of
it's the environment. Exactly, it's the environment you're in. You have to adapt. So what a coach is really doing, in my eyes, is creating the ultimate learning environment.
Yeah, definitely. And it's it's the same within kind of like business. Progressive businesses that don't grow without people questioning what you're doing, and that's essentially what you're doing throughout the lesson. Is right, let's challenge this, let's challenge that. Providing some barriers for people to think themselves and think, well, if I've got to swing it out that way and get the ball over there, like, what do I have to do? And you're just there to kind of chip in every now and again for them to find it, and it's a fascinating watch. So if anybody's out there that hasn't tuned into Marcus's YouTube, go and have a look at some of his lessons. They're like 2 to 3 hours long, but they're condensed down into 25 minutes, right, Marcus?
Yeah, 20 to 25 minutes on YouTube, but we often put the full unedited version out on Vimeo, so you can purchase the whole lesson, so you can see. It's not a Hollywood post-production kind of glossed, romanticized kind of story where someone comes in and it's all kind of faked up, and it's not. It's what you're seeing. That's why I put the videos out there, because I want people to see that person's journey. So you do see the adversity that they face. It's not a kind of instant sprinkle a bit of magic dust and suddenly they're ripping it. It may appear like that, and people who believe that are really not seeing the full picture, and that says a lot about themselves as well, how they perceive the game, that they actually think that's possible. If you think it's possible that someone's giving you a quick fix and you're searching a pro for a quick fix, then that's in itself, that's a paradox that you're going to be stuck in, because there is no outlet to that. You can't. So you're going to be on the constant search for the rest of your life, and that can be enjoyable. That is enjoyable, to be honest. That's part of the reason why we play and tinker and play with things. But we want to be doing it in a productive manner. It's something that's actually got an end goal. So as opposed to just getting us through to next weekend. On the so. I mean, like yourself with your clothing company, you're your own biggest critic. So you critique yourself, and I think that's why we're so well aligned, is that you're so passionate, diligent about what you do. You go about your business in a very professional way, and what you've done, you're so innovative and creative, and that's what resonated with me straight away. The parallels between what we do, albeit your clothing, I'm coaching golf. It's like the actual philosophies behind it are so well aligned, and that's why, in my eyes, it's perfect fit. Literally perfect fit. So yeah, and the chats we've had, and we're going to put some stuff on YouTube about the clothing and the functionality of it and things like, and the link to performance and stuff. But yeah, so it is a perfect partnership in my eyes, and so yeah, it's exciting for the future, really.
Yeah.
My coaching's evolving all the time. I mean, I'm nowhere near where I'm just starting out, really.
Yeah.
With my research, it's kind of starting to really come to fruition, and I'll have some. Hopefully, we're going to have some published articles out there soon. And
fantastic.
But even still, it's kind of it's evolving, and your clothing range is evolving.
Yeah,
so you're always looking at how you can improve something, and I'm always looking at how I can help my pupils just achieve what they want to get out of the game, really. It's not all about, there's no, it's meeting the pupils' needs. Everybody comes and everyone plays the game for different reasons.
Yeah.
So we can't all assume that everybody wants to hit it a certain way or wants to swing it a certain way. A lot of people come through my door and go, Marcus, if this doesn't work, I'm packing up golf. Yeah. And it's like that's a really kind of, that's a big responsibility to take on as a coach.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the variety of players they have on the channel is phenomenal. And some of the guys that literally come in that just start playing the game with not much athletic ability, no ball game skills. As a cricketer, we've hit a ball, albeit a complete different way, and it's the wrong way for golf. But you hit a ball, you can physically make a swing. But some of the guys that come in and all of a sudden some basic feel kind of drills, and they're like a different golfer. And I remember one guy coming in on your channel, and he said, you said, look, what do you want to improve? And he says, there's just one par 3. There's one par 3 that's 150 yards, and I can never ever do the carry distance over the water. And that was the one thing that he wanted. At the end of the lesson, he got it, and he's like, did he come back, or am I getting him confused with someone else?
So that's Ray from Thailand.
That's right.
And he hit his 6 iron. He could never get it further than 135, and they said there's a par 3 over water, and I need to carry it 150.
Yeah.
And we got him carrying it 155 in the lesson with a nice draw, and he was like, I've never done that before. And he said, I'm so happy, I'm going to go and play the hole. And on the second video, he came back.
Yeah.
And on the second video, I think he came back. Sure. No, no. I reposted it on my channel. So originally it was on Robin's channel. Right. I reposted it, but what he'd done in between time, he played that hole and he knocked it to about 2 foot and made a birdie.
Yes, that's
and
right.
He stood there next to the flag. So he WhatsApped me the message with his picture, happy as Larry, and it achieved what he wanted.
Yeah, so, that's fantastic. Yeah, I remember watching that video and I was like, that's brilliant. Like, he's come there with this thing. He's got this hole in his mind, and he's gone there, and now he's happy as Larry. And you touched a little bit on there with kind of Robin, but kind of with the YouTube stuff, how did that come about? Was that by accident? Was that in the plan, or tell us a little bit about how that came about, because it's been a meteoric rise the last year or so. It's the channel's ever growing, and it's every time I look on, it seems there's another 1,000 subs. And was that always your intention, or was it a little bit by accident?
I always knew I was. I think it's you're holding in something pretty special. I think, because I've been doing this for such a long time, and this was going on before the YouTube videos were filmed. So, but this was going on at a very local level, so regionalised, really. Although I've got the odd customer coming from afar, nobody knew about me. I'm just in a driving range in Doncaster. It's a golf club in Doncaster, and it's like then Robin came along, and he came along for a lesson, and so he met he's friends with Seb, and Seb was friends with Sam, my assistant. and they met at Seb's son's christening. It was a barbecue, and they got chatting because Robin had he was setting up as an entrepreneurial kind of spirit, and he was a first year assistant, disenchanted with it, and looking for some other form really to apply his skill within golf. So he was looking at other avenues, and he was trying to connect golf pros. I think he was setting up something similar to like teatimes.co.uk, but with golf pros, coaches.
Yeah.
So look, it was and by his own admission, it wasn't kind of revolutionary, but it was an opportunity for him to branch off and do something a bit different. So he was looking for coaches, and he was looking for coaches that did it a bit different. And he met Sam at a barbecue, and Sam said, "You need to come and see my boss." He says, "You need to come and see Mark and have a lesson." He said, "It'll blow your mind." And he's like, "All right, yeah, I'll come." And that was that moment changed everything really, because what Robin brought obviously was, well, he brought the exposure because. But this is before that actually kicked off. What he did was he came for a couple of lessons and he was blown away by it.
Yeah.
And he thought, this is too good. He's like, I've got to get this out there. And it was just his enthusiasm and it was just his passion to get it out there. And he was fused with his kind of the situation he was with his training with the PGA. It was like anti-establishment. It was a bit rebellious. It was kind of a different coaching approach. And so he brought that personality side to it, and he took it out there, and he was doing a few drills that I don't even use really now. And he went out there and onto YouTube, and he started to get a lot of exposure, a lot of engagement, started to get a lot of traction. And the audience started growing, and I think, and then it kind of spiraled up. So he's then starting to immerse himself more into that kind of persona, and he started going off teaching all over the place, and getting a big following. But I got a phone call about 6 months later, and it was Robin, and he said, "Marcus, I'm really sorry." And I said, "Why?" he said, "No, look," he said, "I'm really sorry. I need to apologise." He said, "I never meant for this to happen." He said, because he videoed the lessons when he came with me. And he said, I was just so taken aback, and I was just so excited about what I'd just experienced. And I saw an opportunity. But he said, I've realised I can't do this. He said that I can take people to a certain place. He said, but if they experience any failure, I've not got the toolkit. I don't understand how it works to be able to get them to that level of performance that they're coming for." Yeah. So he said, "Can we shoot a video?" He said, "Is there any opportunity for us to work together?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." I said, "Look," I said, "to be honest, mate," I said, I expected this conversation a lot sooner. I said, I thought your shit would run aground a lot earlier. I said, you had like 2 lessons and like such little content. It's so thin, but you've made it, you've padded it out, and you've made it something that people recognise as you, which is testament to you. But they're only seeing not even the tip of the iceberg. It's like, so he said, and he says, it's took me this long to realise that. So what he did was then, he says, I've got a guy, he's come back to me, I can't get him to hit it. Could he come to you, and I'll explain the backstory. And this was Tom. This is the first video on Robin's channel. Yeah. And he said, I've hit a brick wall with him. I can't take. He's come back, and I couldn't get any improvement. So he came to me, said, I'll video it, and that's where it all kicked off. So I got Tom ripping it in about 10 minutes, and it was like exactly what Robin was expecting. Yeah. And the video did about 20,000 off the bat. And then he came, we did a 2-parter, and then and then that was the start of it. And then it was the perfect platform to get this information out there and show people there's a different way. Because at the end of the day, all I'm wanting to do is help golfers. It's like, so this was the perfect medium to help people, to see what we're doing, to see it is successful. It is, and we do get consistent results. It's kind of, but ultimately, the learner is at the heart of it. So they have to take ownership. A lot of us don't. Going back to the philosophical approach, I think a lot of us shirk the responsibility of with our own learning in golf. It's kind of we almost pass over that. We kind of don't take that responsibility for the ownership of our game. It's that lesson didn't work, or that coach that coach isn't very good, or I've got this tip and it's like it's very fragile. And
I was speaking to Liam about this the other day. I don't know if you caught it live, but I think it was a private conversation. And he was saying how this lockdown and people teaching more online and view and kind of via video is kind of, he thinks it's kind of like helping that in some way, because people, even though you're having a lesson and someone's sending you some tips in terms of drills and stuff like that, you kind of like out of the comfort of, I'll just go and see him down the road, and it's that comfort blanket of someone being there. I know it's kind of like different with you, with kind of like but it's just that it's taking ownership is kind of what more I'm talking about. And I think it's a massive thing. It's I need to go and see my pro, and it's like, no, you need to recap what you've done before, go back and having a reset, which I know you talk about quite a bit, don't you?
Yeah, I think. Look, there's more than one way of doing it, and so whatever resonates with that person, it's allowing the person to reset and find their own baseline.
Yeah.
So where does that lie? Because what people's current perception of their game is something that they've constructed to this point in time. So with in the environment that they were exposed to along the way, and the information that they were absorbing. So there wasn't any opportunity for any other learning outside that, because it's a form of conditioning. It's a conditioned approach, and we're all subject to that. We're all subject to conditioning in one form or another. So we're a product of that. It just what's influencing that is the information we choose to read or to take on board. So it's being able to filter it. What information is useful to me? What information is actually serving to create more of a distance between what I do and what I intend to do? What's adding more interference? Sometimes we don't recognise that because we're not actually trained learners, if you like. So and then we very easily start to obviously we're a being that's got self-preservation at heart, and so we're negatively wired to start with. So once we start experiencing some form of adversity, and we're all creatures of comfort in this day and age, we don't really like failure that much. And in this day and age of instant gratification, we're kind of wanting to get there. We want the success quick, and we want to fast track it. Yeah, and that serves to even further support that notion of rescinding ownership to somebody else of your game. I just want that quick fix. Give me that tip, and then if it happens to work, he's a swing guru or whatever it is. It's like they don't exist, swing gurus. It's like the thing is like the only person who's doing the learning is you. Yeah. And so it's training you to learn, and that's why what's going on in the lesson. And funnily, you talk about hypnotism. I had a hypnotist contact me the other day and said, "Marcus, what you're doing is you're using a lot of hypnotist techniques." Yeah. And look, I've done NLP and I've done a lot of other stuff. I'm not aware of. I've not looked into hypnotism that much, but there's a lot of work with attention going on, redirection, things like that, which can be seen to be a little bit pseudoscience, but they get results. They're not. They're actually allowing the body to perform. So, and I think that's why sometimes it gets met with a little bit of resistance from the coaching industry, because I mean, look, everyone accepts this type of coaching. There's a lot of other people out there who are doing similar things, but it's not mainstream, that's for sure.
No, no, but it's honestly, it's honestly fascinating to watch people go through the, you know, even the shortened down version on YouTube. It's kind of fascinating, but and it kind of brings me on to, you know, some of the, you know, your training aids and kind of techniques, and you know, you have your three different you know, kind of directions of the swing. You might be able to explain it a little bit better, and you know, you have your training aids specifically, you know, for those three motions, depending on, you know, what people's faults are or what you're trying to achieve. You know, like, can you explain your kind of like process in terms of, you know, first of all, maybe, you know, give people the outline of the three different directions, and then, you know, through some of the training aids, and you know, how you kind of come to that solution. Is there I know it's, you know, probably 20 years of experience, but can you kind of like put it in kind of some kind of brief package for us?
Right.
No,
Cheers, Rob. Cheers, Rob. Not asking much. Infinitesimal, to be honest. So what I would say is, look, I mean, I've gone into podiatric biomechanics, so I looked at it from the ground up. A guy called Bill Owens has got a fantastic teaching system called Triangulate, and we a long time ago, with a guy called Stefan Basha, we adopted it and called it Flow Motion, and that's continuing to this day. I started to move in a slightly opposite direction, really, with my beliefs, and I started to look at why this walking works. So I went off and studied podiatric biomechanics, lower body mechanics, so gait cycle essentially, and tried to look at how we interact with the ground and how that relates to the golf swing. And so it was really interesting. So my research took me up in that direction, and I started to look at lots of other forms of movement therapy, forms of exercises, movement awareness kind of applications, and so it started to take me up into this place where really it's about the body. The body you developing a sense of your own body and a mindful awareness. Now I'm going to link it back to the forces, because what you're actually doing when you're doing all these exercises is you're attuning yourself to these forces, whether you're doing a squat, whether you're doing a lunge, whether it's a side lunge, forward lunge, whatever you're doing, you're using the ground for accelerating the body and then braking, and you're using the ground to rotate, you're using the ground to go up, using the ground to go down. Okay, so it's how you interact with the ground. So what we did was, I started to look at these three forces, and then it kind of started to tie into my ground reaction force studies. So I was looking at the golf swing a long time ago on force plates, and I was starting to look at I mean, there's a lot, and this is something else that we weren't exposed to. So I did my PGA in 2002 to 2003 when I qualified. And when I was doing my Masters in 2008, there was loads of scientific research done in the 90s, and well, more the 70s, 80s, 90s, particularly 90s. But it was going back years, and the PGA never, I mean, they do now, but they never adopted that approach. So they didn't really show the pros a scientific approach. It was more anecdotally led, and coaching is very, very kind of, there's a very tradition bias to it, and I'm not saying that a lot of it doesn't hold credibility and substance. It does. It holds truths, because you only have to look at all the world's best performers over the years, and there's some similar common denominators there, similar traits. If you're for the trained eye, but nevertheless, there was this scientific world that wasn't being tapped into, and I was like, it blew my mind when I got access to this. Now it's different. 10 years on, it's obviously, there's a lot of science in golf, but it's relatively, it's new. It's only over the last 10 years where they're now starting to look at all the science that went on before. So I was really exposed to this 10 years ago, and it started to shape my mind and shape my approach. And I was thinking about, I was obviously working with force plates. I started working with them in 2008.
Yeah.
And I started to look at the forces that we're talking about. So the X, Y, Z forces, we're looking at horizontal forces, we're looking at rotational forces, and we're looking at vertical forces.
Yeah.
And I mean, I use a pressure plate. So a pressure plate only measures vertical force, but it tracks the vertical force, and it can measure the vertical force. And you're measuring the vertical force through both feet, so you can start to get an inference of torque through the body. So if I have got force plates at a different studio. And they measure force obviously 3-dimensionally. So, but for what I need for how as a coaching tool, the Balance Lab is brilliant. So, when you come for a lesson, what we're really doing, Rob, like you when you came with Steve, is we're attuning you first to the forces you're using. So, how do you move? How do you utilize those side-to-side forces? How do you utilize those rotational forces? And how do you utilize those up and down forces? And when do you apply them? And how does your body want to move to use them? Mm-hmm. So it's really just attuning you to how you use them, and then you start to see the potential with your golf swing with these forces, and be creative with it. And so for me, that's the challenge for the coach, is to where he takes you with that. Yeah. He take you on this journey now of discovery into how to apply these forces in the best way that you know how. Nobody else, you. How do you apply them? So you have to challenge the system, and that's essentially what I'm doing, challenging you to. So you're taking ownership. You're at the heart of your own learning. This is deep learning, as the Attention Academy said earlier in one of the comments. This is a deep state of learning where you are creating the solutions. So these patterns, this synaptic network that you're creating is creating deeply embedded movement patterns, and you've had to go through the adversity of the challenge to create that. So these are patterns that can be recalled. Yeah, it's very different to learning something parrot fashion. It's like I've said before, it's like cramming revision in to pass your A levels or your GCSEs, and you're doing it in like the week before, and you pass it. 6 months later, someone asks you a question about that exam, and you've forgotten it. Yeah, that's me. That's me too. If I didn't do the revision, I just kind of just bombed out. But it's kind of, but yeah, it's like the fast track, trying to cram it, and therefore there's no real deep understanding. Yeah. So, and there was no opportunity, there was no time for anyone to learn anything else. So there was no underpinning rationale. There was no journey to get there. So it was a case of cramming it in, drilling in essence in a golf swing, in the context of golf, on a range, drilling it, trying to just learn it parrot fashion, and hope that it just somehow miraculously functions on a golf course. And then if I want to kind of tweak it, I can do. But we need to learn while we're practicing. So I mean, when you came for your lesson with Steve, it was, I mean, look, you like you said a minute ago, you're a different animal in relation to the average golfer, because you've come from a sporting background at an elite level. So you've been playing cricket. I mean, you got down to 3 handicap in like a couple of years. Yeah. So that's not the norm, but it just shows what is possible. Yeah. That's what I mean. It's an inspiration. It's inspirational. I think that you're actually showing people that, look, I've played golf 2 years, but I can cross over from one sport into another. Yeah. I mean, I coach Lee Sharp. People might have seen the video of Lee on my channel, and Lee's come over obviously from a footballing background. So and he's turned pro, and he's over in Spain at the moment, and he's getting ready for some senior tour stuff. And he took that step over from another sport, another high level, from a high level into golf. And so there's a transfer of learning. We all possess this ability. We can all transfer skills from one thing to another one, no matter what it is, in our day-to-day life, we can transfer skills. The body's very, very adept at this. Yeah, in golf, because of the mindset that we adopt, it inhibits that transfer of learning from other skills.
Yeah, yeah.
Your really good performers are able to do it.
Yeah.
And the average golf, I say the average golfer, that's a bit crass, really. It's not the average golfer. It's not. There's no such thing. But your golfer who's going to the range and practicing and going and following what he or she believes is a structured and a kind of if you like, widely accepted approach that must achieve results because it's worked for someone else. And it's a more systematic approach. They believe they're doing the right things and they're applying themselves. And it's almost like the harder I work, the more I should achieve, and with that comes a level of expectancy and almost we become almost, there's a level of self-entitlement to this.
Yeah. That's
the danger, is like the more work I put in, the more I deserve this. And then, so if you practice your short game all week, when you go out on that golf course on a Saturday, you're expecting your short game to be shit hot. Yeah. And then you go out there and it's, you shank you or you duff your first chip and you're like,
yeah,
what have I just done all week? I've been practicing, why? And it's like, that level of entitlement that develops through coaching, through practice.
Yeah.
That serves
100% me. I remember a couple of years ago, or might have even, no, it definitely wasn't last year, it was the year before last, and, you know, I'd grind at the range. I was there every morning at like 5:30, 6 o'clock before work, a couple of hours, do this, do that. And I remember getting to the Saturday medal and be like I'd play during the week, a couple of holes, like after work, and it's like, you're striking it all right, you think you're doing okay, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're on the Saturday medal and you're 4 over through 4 and your head's off. You're like, this isn't meant to happen. I've been practicing all week, but obviously, you know, not challenging the right things. And, you know, it's easy just to whack a 7-iron at a target or a 6-iron at target and with kind of no pressure and no consequence. But as soon as you're out there with a card in your hand and things like that, then it's kind of different. I think that's where, you know, you're kind of coming at it. You know, you've got to challenge yourself more, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got to demand a response from the body. One probably that you don't recognise either.
Yeah.
If you're doing the same things and expecting a result that's not happening, but you're expecting something to happen because someone's told you so. Okay, yeah. It's a form of religion, if you like, and it's a belief system. It's like, this is happening. If you go away and practice, go away and I want you to go and practice 3 times a week and it will happen. It's like, I'm not saying there shouldn't be a work ethic. I'm not saying there shouldn't be this kind of, we've got to put time in.
Yeah, of course.
But we've got to put it in a way that's actually productive and conducive to development. So when you go to, like you said, going to the range, the first thing I would say is you go to the range and you've got to start, you go to the range and you've got to use a high level of variability to what you do. And you've also got to challenge yourself. I mean, time-wise too. On a golf course, there's a lot of time between shots. Yeah. On the driving range, people are shelling balls, and they'll probably hit 60 balls in 20 minutes. Yeah, in a round of golf, they might play 60 full shots in 4.5 hours. Yeah. That's if they're shooting high numbers. I mean, if you might only hit 30 full shots. Say.
Yeah. I actually started doing that a little bit more last year, and you know, going to the range and. The one up at our club's just been built, and so towards the end of the year was literally just buying 20 balls. And you know, you go to other ranges and you think it's not worth it because it's, you know, a little bit more expensive, or they don't do it, or you know, you've drove half an hour there. I'm not just going to hit 20 balls, but with it being on my doorstep, I felt like I could do it, and it wasn't so much of a, you know, a hassle and stuff. But taking more time between shots, and all of a sudden, you know, you do feel a bit of a difference. You do get out of a rhythm, and you do have to, you know, trust your movement a little bit more. And you know, just taking that a little bit more time definitely helps. I 100% agree. Have you got any drills or anything or range practices that you'd recommend?
Look, I mean, we're actually we're developing some practice programs and stuff like that, which allow for self-discovery, but in a structured way, so that you've it's more planned, so that you know what you're going to be practicing. But yet, when you get there, it provides a landscape for learning. Right. So, not a structured kind of process that you go through. It's but there are specific needs that you actually identify first. Yeah. So you think, what do I want to actually practice, and how am I going to achieve this? So actually asking yourself questions. The first thing is reflection. You've got to reflect on what you're currently doing to make any form of change that's going to be effective. So first of all, reflect on what you're currently doing, and I would have a pros and a cons, plus minus column. What's helping me and what do I think that isn't? Because at the moment, if I'm a frustrated golfer, I'm doing things that aren't helping me as much as I might be doing some things that do help me. I'm probably doing a lot of stuff that probably isn't. So what might these be? So first of all, do a little bit of research. We're in lockdown. There's an opportunity to look online at stuff. And what am I doing that might not be helping me achieve my goals and aspirations in this game? So, and how do I practice? And if a typical practice session is just buy the 3 baskets of balls, go and think of some swing tip or some swing drill and go and drill it for 20, 30 balls and start on your sand wedge and move up through the clubs to the driver, and then off you go home, and that's my practice session.
It's like, recording me?
You and everyone else and me, we've all done it. It's like a trap we all fall into. You wouldn't do that in any other sport. Not that high amount of repetition, doing the same thing with every time. It would be varied. There'd be structures to stuff that you're doing, obviously, with an outcome goal. What is your outcome goal for practice? What would you like to achieve when you go to the driving range? So you've got to ask yourself some questions first. Yeah. What do you want to get out of the session? And now, I would use lockdown to actually design some practice sessions that are actually representative of what you intend to do on a golf course. And am I doing stuff on the range that is actually counter to what I intend to do on a golf course? And most of us are, because I mean, I gave a couple of guys a challenge. They came, these 2 guys, best mates, came along, and they go to the range 3 times a week. And I said to them, I says, right, once a week, you've got to go to the range. The range was about 15, 20 minutes away. I said, you buy 20 balls each. Yeah. And that's it. You don't have any more. Yeah. So you've got 20 balls. And I said, you've got to have, what did I say? No. I said 20 balls between them. So you've got 10 balls and you've got to have 2 minutes per ball. Yeah. So this is probably half the time on a golf course. Yeah. You're going to have 2, 3, 4 minutes walking to your ball, maybe. Yeah. So I said, for one session a week, you've got 10 balls each, and you're going to watch each other hit the shot. And you can even have a stop and a coffee and a chat halfway. You can do whatever you like. Yeah. But you've got 10 balls each, and then you leave and you go home. Yeah. Or you stay back afterwards, have a coffee, and discuss what you did, and then what you're going to do next time to practice, so that when you do this exercise again with these 10 balls, you feel like you're achieving more. Yeah. So basically, creating a similar situation to playing around the golf. Yeah. And trust me, when you've only got 10 balls and you've travelled 20 minutes and you're only allowed to hit 10 balls and you've got 2 minutes between each ball, roughly, you're going to think about how you're hitting those golf shots. Yeah. And you're going to think about you're going to become very, very aware of the processes or the routines or the behaviour that you apply to this. So that's a real starting point for being reflective on how you're applying yourself to the game. It'll reveal a lot. Yeah. Your mind might wander. You might get distracted easily. You might do the opposite. It's interesting. You're challenging the psychological aspect of it. Learning a lot about how do you manage time. What do you think of in between shots? How are you gonna play this next shot? Have you got anything in mind, or are you just blasting the ball? Are you thinking about your golf swing? Are you preparing for what you intend to do? Is there any form of rehearsal? Is there any form of simulation, so visualization going on?
Yeah.
Or just literally, would you normally go to the range, rake the balls, fire away, machine gun it, and then get a few shots and think, oh, I've hit half a dozen decent shots. That's all right. So the first thing is reflection. I'm conscious of your time. I don't want to take up everyone's evening.
No,
could talk for hours.
I know, we have done before.
I know. So it's kind of, but there's so much to it. That's the exciting thing. It's like, and a lot of people don't even consider stuff like this sometimes. So it's nice to see a different perspective on it. But yeah, be reflective first on how you're currently applying yourself.
Yeah.
And then write down a list of things that you could or couldn't, or that you're doing that are helping, and a few things that aren't helping. And what would you like to achieve from your practice? What would you like to achieve out of the game? And what would help you to get there? So, and that's what a coach is for now. A coach is a sounding board.
Yeah.
So I like my pupils to be proactive in their learning. So they're going out researching, coming back to me with ideas and sounding ideas with me.
It's a discussion rather than a dictatorship, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm not instructing anything. I'm not telling anybody how to do anything. I'm just opening doors really, and letting people just
which is
find out for themselves.
Yeah, which is exactly what you'd like within the golf swing as well. It's self-learning. You know, you go out and do the work, and like you said before, if you've gone out and done the research and got the options, you understand them a little bit better, so then you can implement them better and effectively self-teach, which is it's brilliant that's a full philosophy on your part kind of throughout really. Just touching back onto the training aids and kind of things like that. You've got a few weird and wonderful ways of doing it. Have you, the guys who watch the videos will know what I'm talking about. Those who don't watch the videos, go and watch it. But have you got any, plans on, perhaps, I know currently they're kind of like self-made, and everyone in the comment section is always asking, how do I make one of them? What's the dimensions? Have you got any ideas on or plans on, bringing some Zen logoed ones?
Yeah, so we have got a training aid that's about to be launched. It's going to be probably 2 to 3, probably 3 weeks.
Fantastic.
But you'll be seeing more about it on social media in the coming weeks. We've already took a few forward orders on it already. So it's a combination of everything that you see in the videos in a one-stop shop basically. So everything's involved in this training aid, to, as I mentioned, to attune you to those forces that we were talking about, and create some awareness for that, and create an opportunity for learning for you. So you've seen the footboard that we use. So we've designed with all the scientific study that's been undertaken in the last, like I say, 12 years. Yeah. That's underpinning the design of it really. Fantastic. And this is the first model, the 1.0 model. So it is evolving too, but this is going to be the first one. And then we've got some other training aids that are coming out, which are more for movement based approaches, and they're going to have downloadable training videos with them that come with it, so you can self-profile. Ultimately, it's that reflective process first, where you're self-profiling and you're learning about yourself first, whether you actually recognize these forces, and then you can start to understand how you're using them, and then how you can actually reorganize to optimize the use of them. Yeah. So the training aids really, it's the hardware to the philosophy. Yeah. It's the hardware to the software. So it's the hardware to the mind, body, motion philosophy, and so we're really excited about that. And that'll be
someone just popped in the comments. Where would they be able to get one from once they're launched?
If they just keep an eye out on my social media channels. So on my YouTube channel, Zen Golf Mechanic. I'm Zen Golf Mechanic on all platforms. So Instagram, Facebook mainly. Instagram's the main one, and YouTube. Facebook as well, and then there's some stuff on Twitter, but I don't use Twitter as much, to be fair.
Yeah,
the problem is some golf pros have the PGA handbook and they have to stick to that. That's why George Ganks is so good outside of the box, like yourself. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think you've got to look. You've got to. I think we're all rebels at heart. You've got to challenge the establishment anyway. So it's kind of that wasn't my intention, and this is seen by some as alternative, by some as left field, some as a very abstract way of coaching. But for me, this is what I consider to be mainstream. This is me. This is what I consider to be conventional coaching. Well, I think conventional coaching for me, if we actually had our time again, I think what we're currently doing is perceived madness coaching golf. I think we're actually coaching golf in a completely illogical manner. I think when he came down, an alien came down and looked at a golf lesson. So, for example, a pro asked me a question this morning on my chat. So I did a. If you go over onto my channel, I've got some I've got some videos on IGTV. So I've done some chats, and I got asked this morning about teaching grip. That a lot of beginners grip it a certain way, and I said the way that we're taught to grip, unfortunately, is to grip the golf club. Yet every other sport that you learn the grip from is a byproduct of the task that you're trying to achieve. So a beginner's not taught about the golf shot first, and let's play this shot and let's try and play these shots. They're given the golf club, they look at the leading edge, and they're holding the grip, and they're looking at the hands. Yeah. So they're actually. The purpose at the minute is to learn a grip, whereas every other sport that you play pretty proficiently, you don't think about how you grip it. So it's like tennis. We're going to have a game of tennis.
Yeah, you're looking out there.
And you just pick up a racket in a way that's going to allow you to swing it to play the shot you want. So you don't think about the grip was just born out of the necessity of the intention. Yeah. So, and that's your grip that emerges. So it's every single element of your golf swing is self-organising. So it's an emergent behaviour. So you're not actually prescribing movement in a very linear fashion. This thing is non-linear. This thing is it's chaotic. Yeah. It is messy. It needs to be, and that's where the fun is in learning, and that's where the engagement is, and that's how you start to recognise functional patterns, because you're going to realise what's not functional, and then start to identify what is functional.
Definitely.
So yeah, there's some other interesting questions there I can see.
Yeah, some more coming in. So let's have a look at some of these then. Have you ever had any negative experiences from other golf coaches because of your approach?
No comment. No comment. I can't really, because I do work. I do work with the PGA, so and I've got a lot of friends, and the PGA, I've got a lot of respect. I'm a proud PGA professional. They do a lot of good in the game, and it sounds like, I mean, obviously, I'm just critiquing. That's all you could say. That's all I've said in the past. I'm just about I did my PGA in 2003. That's when I qualified, and it set me off on the pathway, and it set me off with a foundation.
Yeah.
Now, I would say that what they're doing nowadays is obviously very different, and they are encouraging the learner, the newly qualified pro. They're training them to go out there and research and resource their own information and develop their own philosophy. Yeah. So it's not a one size fits all. We used to have this purple manual, which was like, and I mean, I had it when I went to Germany. I went to a native German speaker and I got it translated into German, and I learned my PGA manual word for word in German. And I went over there and I was literally just teaching PGA lessons. I couldn't say anything else outside this PGA manual. So people are asking me, "What's this? What? Oh, it's a nice day," and I just be going like, 2 knuckles on your left hand. Did you watch the football last night? Just stand shoulder width.
Oh, love it.
And so I couldn't deviate from that. Yeah. But it was a great learning experience. Yeah. And so the PGA is it's a fantastic organisation. It's helped me to get where I am, and I feel like I'm just starting out, like I say, on my journey again every day. But
I I think it's difficult, isn't it, with PGA, because, you know, they've obviously taught, and, you know, there's hundreds and thousands of coaches out there with essentially their learning. For them to all of a sudden say, oh no, now all that's garbage, I'm just going to teach this way. Like, they just can't go from 0 to 100, can they? And I think with more and more of these force plates becoming more readily available, people are doing their own research. They are understanding after. You know, you can get the mats now, obviously, that literally roll up into a bag, can't you? So they're becoming more and more accessible, and, you know, more and more, every coach on my Instagram's pretty got one now. So, you know, it's only a matter of time before it starts becoming the norm, but they can't all of a sudden just switch the tap off and, you know, turn another one on and say, no, this is us now, you know, forget what we've ever taught you. So I think that, you know, it's got to be a slow process, hasn't it?
It's evolving. It's how the equipment's being taught to be used. So is it being used as a coaching tool, or is it? Mine's just a measurement device.
Yeah.
And I do use the visual for coaching. It's to understand.
Yeah.
And then be able to interact with your environment in a different way. So you're using the visual feedback now as a form to understand that kinesthetic awareness that you're experiencing.
Yeah.
That's one aspect of it. Yeah. So there's an evolution taking place with the PGA where naturally you'd expect.
Yeah.
And so, but it's actually, so for example, right, I had an ex All Blacks captain come for a lesson last year. So he was the captain of the All Blacks throughout the 2000s.
Yeah. Ricky McCaw, was it?
I don't know. It was a guy called Anton Oliver.
Right. Okay.
So it was a hooker, and he was captain for about, I can't remember, 2000 2007. He lived his life in the All Blacks from 17 years old till 37 when he retired. I think it was 37. He said, I just lived in the All Black. I lived my life with the All Blacks.
Yeah.
And he came for a lesson. Amazing day. And we started the session, and I said, you've already done this before. And he's like, what are you talking about? I mean, I didn't even know the guy. I mean, I'm not a rugby fan, so I'd got no idea who he was. And he came in, and I said, "You're all right? How you doing?" Blah blah blah. And I said, "Have you played much sport before then?" And I'm talking to a national legend in New Zealand. The guy's like David, so
yeah.
Someone said to me, Mark, I mean, one of the guys who loves rugby at our club says, Marcus, that's like asking Roy Keane if he plays football. It was like, but it was, I was none the wiser, which, I mean, it doesn't matter to me anyway. It's all irrelevant. It's relevant to that individual. That's all it's relative to, that individual and their learning. But what is interesting is the backstory, and it's interesting to know the journey that person's took to this point in time now, what they've learned. Because I'm thinking about transfer of learning. I'm thinking about the skills. So you had James Taylor on earlier, I noticed. It's about what skills you can learn, what skills you can transfer from other sports. You can transfer pretty much all of them, okay? Yeah. But they won't look like they do in the other sports. They'll look very different, but you're using that level of skill acquisition that you achieved in that sport, and you're directly transferring it across into golf. And you can very quickly tune up your mechanics with that organic process. So you've got a high level of competency, you've got the movement vocabulary already there, you've got all the notes, you've just got to put them in the right order, you've got to let the body organise itself, and it does so with the utmost efficiency if you give it the environment. If you're trying to paint by numbers and if you're thinking if club face is shut, that's going to hook it, if my club face is open, that's complete. It's like the body's got so many degrees of freedom available to it. Like in cricket, you'll have been in positions where you're out of position, but you somehow pull a shot off, or you go for a catch and you're like, it seems impossible, but you make that catch because you found that functional pattern, but it was subconscious, and it was like it was there somewhere in the system, and the body recalled it in the moment when you needed it, and that's exactly what you do when you play golf. So,
well, obviously James himself was his career was cut, so unfortunately short, but he was an unbelievable, close in field at short leg and silly point and stuff like that. And some of the catches he was pulling off was just unbelievable. And I remember speaking to my Uncle Bruce about it, and he was just like, I've never seen anyone better. And that's just pure, you kind of train for it, but you know, it's completely reactionary, and that's what obviously your coaching is all about in terms of golf, isn't it?
Yeah, it's instinct. And what does instinct? Where does instinct originate from? So instinct comes from experience as well. Okay, yeah. So the body has already explored experience, movement potential, and you may never have made that movement you're about to make before, but your body knows how to create the movement for that to achieve that outcome objective.
Yeah.
So when and it's split second recall, yeah. And not just recall, it's reinvention. Yeah. There'll be things you've done that you thought, where's that come from? How did I play that shot? I can't even remember how I did it. Where you have to look back on a video or something to see how you did it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of and then even when you look back, you can't recreate it because there is no repetition to this thing. It's a unique event every time, so we've got to train that way.
Yeah.
Going back to the Anton Oliver thing, so he'd already experienced Zen, but in a different format, because this non-linear approach to coaching was already being employed by the coaches of the Kiwis when he was captain. Right. Because the guy who trained his coaches was the guy that trained me. So the guy who I work with, who's wrote many books on non-linear pedagogy, dynamical systems, he was doing this in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the Southern Hemisphere teams, particularly in cricket and rugby, adopted this philosophical approach.
Wow, yeah.
So Keith went down to the Southern Hemisphere, went to those Antipodean countries, and what he did was he delivered to the national governing bodies, and he taught the coaches how to apply their coaching practice with a non-linear pedagogy. So essentially what he did was he created a games-based approach which allowed them to use their creativity and develop functional patterns, but also in a team game, an understanding of each other. So Anton said it wasn't that we were the most technically proficient team. I mean, the Kiwis were trained like Marines. I mean, these guys were like, he's lived immersed in elite level coaching all his life.
Yeah.
And so never known anything else, but he saw what I was doing on YouTube, and it instantly resonated. And I said, it will resonate because you've already been Zen'd, mate. You were Zen'd in 2000.
Yeah.
I said,
you've never not been Zen'd.
You've been Zen'd in rugby in 19, and he was like, shit, man. He was like, it feels like I'm coming home. And it was like, it was a brilliant, and it was brilliant because it resonated with him on a level. He says, I said, I bet you never did any technical coaching in the All Blacks. And he said, no, never did any technical coaching.
Yeah.
But there was an understanding between all of us. They used to have open practice sessions where they would openly invite all the other team coaches, South Africans, Australians. They'd come and watch the Kiwis, and he said they'd watch us tactically and they'd think they'd get the better of us. But he said we could turn our tactics on ahead. He said, and we could create formations that we'd not even practice, because we would adapt to each other wherever we are, however we needed to adapt. It was fluid. We would change, and no one knew what was coming because we didn't know what was coming half the time. He said we would just adapt. He says, so if we don't know what's about to happen, how can anyone prepare for that? He says, but we would all just fall into place. And he says, and they were such a successful team.
Yeah.
And so they were allowing themselves to continually self-organise, and that reinvention is at the heart of essentially the golf coaching too. So it was all joined up. It was a brilliant day, and it made sense. It just made sense on so many levels, really.
That's unreal. No, I could literally pick your brains on that all night, because I played at a decent level of rugby, kind of growing up as well, and you know, watching the All Blacks and some of the things you said there is like, wow, yeah. Like we used to train and have moves planned, and then our coach were really forward thinking as well, and you know, he was saying, the All Blacks don't do that, you know, and I could speak about it all night, but you know, I won't. They
even knew each. He said there was an intuitive understanding of each other that if one of us got injured, we'd start to realise how that would affect his overall skill level of what he could and couldn't do, and then we would then compensate for that. So he'd move into a position that would allow him to use what he's currently got, instead of being subbed or whatever, and we would fill the gap. So it was like they were constantly adapting. He said, and it was that adaptation that separated us. He said there were stronger teams. Some teams were more technical. He said, but as a collective, couldn't get close.
No, and that's obviously just, you know, they've got the ammunition for everything, haven't they? And that's what obviously you're trying to build into the golf swing and golf game. Really, it isn't just about the swing, and I think that's, you know, a fantastic thing for you. It's about the whole process and playing the sport rather than just making a motion of a swing.
Lee Sharp said the same thing about football. He says the manager has an influence, but at the end of the day, he said it's all about the players on the pitch.
Yeah.
They have an understanding and they can all adapt. He says the amount of times that he got dragged off for not doing his particular role. Yet he said, I was about to get dragged off. He said, and then he went and scored one of the best goals ever. He said, there wasn't. He was wanting to pull me off, but there wasn't an opportunity yet. And so it was a case of he stayed on, and then he went and scored a goal. But he was like, they were all just adapting to each other, and that's how the best teams play. That's how the best players play. What do they say about all the top level performers, no matter what sport it is? Let's say golf, flair players, they've got a creative mind. They can do things that other players can't do. Well, we've all got that ability. We've all played amazing golf shots because that's what draws us to the game. Yeah. And we can all have that moment of brilliance. And I suppose that's the drug that keeps us coming back, really.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, that moment of brilliance that you just talked about, and you touched on it before about, you know, being there before. And I was listening to a kind of a podcast about visualization, and he was saying that yes, you can practice in terms of, you know, physically practice, but that mental visualization, you know, is your brain doesn't know whether it's real or it's made up in your mind. And he had a brilliant story, and apparently it's in Wayne Rooney's book, where the overhead kick he scored against Man City, he dreamed about that goal 6 months before he actually did it. So when the opportunity arose and the corner came in, and you know the players around him were in the position where it allowed him to, and he was in the position what allowed him to obviously spring off his foot to hit the overhead kick, he already had done that in his mind. And you know, it baffled me to think that, you know, he basically dreamed about that goal and he'd obsessed over it for 6 months. I'm going to score an overhead kick against Man City to win at Old Trafford. And like, it just baffles me that is actually a thing. So when the opportunity arose, he'd already done it.
Yeah, I remember that because I'm a City fan. Don't bring that up.
Sorry, what did you say? Did you not hear?
Your volume low, Rob. I can't hear you, but.
Love it. Right, I'm conscious of the time.
So so I mean, what? Just to talk there.
Yeah.
That projection's so important. That visualization, but some players don't see shots. Jack Nicklaus saw the golf shot, Tiger Woods didn't. So it's like that visualization means something different to everybody. So there's not a one size fits all. This is not a system like anything else. It's a case of how does that intention resonate with you? How do you perceive it? You perceive the world through your own reality, and so it's got to have meaning to you. And that's essentially where what I'm trying to find with the coaching. So I'm challenging the system to find out what has meaning to you, and so therefore then you've got something now that is tangible to you that you can actually apply and use. So because it makes sense. So that visualization, which is a forward projection, it's a simulation.
Yeah.
It's kind of, there's an intention and then movement happens. So there's latency. You intend to do and movement happens. Now that time could be 6 months. It could be a second. Yeah. So once you start to think about the dimension of time, you can expand it. I mean, this is a very different conversation. We're going to start going up into, we're going to start going to quantum mechanics in a minute. But it's kind of, once you start to expand that dimension of time and start to flip it and start to look at that event from a different perspective, you start to realise that how this simulation can take place and how you can perceive it. And actually it can be perceived in many different ways. And ultimately, this is an element of what I do in my lessons. So, but we'll talk about E equals MC squared another day.
I love it. No, really conscious of the time, mate. So thank you very much for tonight. As always, we could have gone on for hours. So we'll have to do it again. So if you don't already, go and check out Marcus on Zen Golf Mechanics across all platforms. be sure to check out his video. I know he's working really hard at the minute on his, update your Instagram with shorter videos to then obviously lead into the YouTube content. So be sure to check him out. If you like the clothes he's wearing, he's got a code Zen20. Favorite piece of item of ours, go.
Pardon?
Favorite piece of item of clothing? What would you recommend?
I've got it on, to be honest. It's the quarter length.
Yeah.
Quarter length zip, long sleeve. I mean, again, we were talking about it earlier, the functionality of it. I mean, the fit. It's not baggy, but there's movement in the right place. It's kind of, there's freedom to move. I mean, I've worn this out today all day. I was doing some golf swings earlier on an earlier video. Yeah. I've been out of town to pick my kid up from nursery. Yeah. Been to town. It's kind of, you feel comfortable wearing it anywhere. But the gilet and the long sleeve. I think that's my.
That's your signature look.
That's what people identify me with now.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got to. The amount of people that are saying the same thing, like with the kind of other guys and ambassadors and stuff. I've got my signature look, and that's what I'm going with. And we know yours is very popular. So if you want to check any of the products out,
as well.
The hoodies, the hoodies have been so popular. Yeah. So use code Zen20 if anybody wants anything. That's a code that's all the time. Gets you 20% off site wide. So any of Marcus's favourite bits you want, you can drop them in your basket and get some discount. So be sure to use that. And thanks again, mate. I really appreciate it. We'll have to do it again some other time.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. And thank you, everybody out there. Thanks for listening and taking the time. Hope you found it interesting. There's something to help you. And stay safe and look after yourself and each other. Thanks a lot.
Fantastic. Cheers, Marcus. Thanks, mate.
Okay, guys. Thanks. Cheers, Rob. See you, mate.